Hi everyone, welcome back to another edition of the Biotope blog. We're here now on episode 6. Thank you for all of those who have continued to watch this new series and for staying tuned in, for all of your feedback, your comments and all of your suggestions. Today I'm going to talk quite quickly. I've sort of run out of time in my day, so I haven't been able to do a really long video. I wanted to talk about various things, and today has not gone exactly to plan, but I do have enough time to talk to you guys very quickly about a little bit about terminology, specifically, or should I say it's another terminology based video. So some of the earlier videos you've seen I spoke about what it means when we say a biokinosis, and we spoke about the difference between biotopes and habitats. And today I want to take a little closer look at the word riparian, not to be confused with riparium with an M at the end, although they in this respect they come together quite nicely. So maybe I should actually talk about the difference between the two. I'll touch on that anyway. Right, a riparian zone is what you will normally hear. Normally you'll hear the word used in that context, and what it actually means is referring to a very particular area along a riverbed, a riverbank, where anything that exists in that zone is known as riparian. So along riverbanks, normally between the lowest that the water recedes and sort of the highest area, usually there's fluctuation. In that area there may be plant species, perhaps they're terrestrial plants growing right at the margins at the highest areas, maybe semi-aquatic plants that are sort of periodically flooded and emerge again, or even plants that are right down at the lowest point where they're mostly submerged but do get some exposure to the air. We're also talking about species that live there. We could be talking about amphibious species, including fishes. There are some fascinating fish species that could be the topic of a whole other video, that live sort of amphibious lifestyles. And there are way more than you can imagine. I mean, the first thing that comes to my mind is mud skippers, which are more typically associated with brackish habitats, but there are some freshwater fishes that would absolutely blow your mind. So perhaps we can touch on that. And there's a few videos circulating around that I could probably show you some clips of, and you guys can really see just some of the incredible stuff that some of these fish species get up to outside of the water. But yeah, I mean, just essentially riparian as a term is referring to that stretch of riverbank. And why that's interesting for biotope aquariums in particular is because they can make for very interesting biotope aquariums. And I've seen over the last few years quite a lot of great submissions to some of the biotope aquarium contests, especially where people have submitted aquariums based on the zone just where the riverbank goes, sort of becomes submerged. And it's really nice because they're able to put in some plants above the water level and some below, and you know, depending on your preference, you could include some terrestrial species, you could, you know, depending on how compatible all of those species are, or maybe you want to try and create something that's really realistic. Many freshwater fish species from all over the world feed predominantly on what we call allochthonous insects, and those are species that exist outside of the water column that maybe fall in. And so maybe you find it interesting to create some sort of riparium to recreate your riparian zone, and even include some sort of insect species. I know many people from their local pet stores can buy different types of crickets or locusts, or nowadays you can buy many types of things to create your ecosystem, including ant species, depending I suppose on how strict you are on your preferences for your biotopes, remembering that a biotope aquarium or vivarium or riparium, whatever it might be, is trying to recreate one area, so you do want to try to find species that coexist naturally. But yeah, there's lots of sort of avenue to do slightly more creative things. Some people I've seen have kept small lizards perhaps on the terrestrial areas, or newts. There's lots of very interesting ideas. You just have to make sure that what you do create is ethical. So if you have some sort of riparian aquarium and maybe you keep some sort of terrapin species or something, then it's probably not ethical, certainly not ethical for you to then keep fishes in the water knowing that they'll be consumed alive, which is well, on top of the fact that it's quite cruel, it's also illegal in some places. So yes, I suppose the point I'm trying to come to is that these sort of riparian setups can actually be really thought-provoking and really a very creative process. It starts to make you think of not only the subaquatic realm, but sort of venturing out onto the land, and how that area, that riparian zone, is actually unique in its own right. Because even if we look down to the plant species alone, some of those species are going to be extremely sodden or very, very waterlogged, and that's not something that most plant species prefer, or at least they don't survive long term that way. So you're looking at almost a wetland adapted species, subaquatic and semi-aquatic plants there, and how you structure all of that is the creative and exciting part, to make sure that the plants you put in actually thrive at this area, as opposed to maybe 4 or 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 centimeters higher. That's really interesting. And sometimes you can also just get a very natural balance by maybe seeding as well. That's interesting. And the ones that take, the seeds that take, are the ones that sort of are situated in their most optimum localities, I suppose, within your setup. I've done that before. It's really quite nice. Sprouted rice or even grass seeds, lots of different things, just to see how the setup establishes itself. And it's always nice to have some sort of active root systems as well. It's a nice way to extract nitrates, keep your nitrate levels down, sort of complete the nitrogen cycle in your aquarium, which we often do with aquatic plants, but depending on the species, and of course water changes, but yeah, depending on the species you're keeping, it may be more realistic to try to use a different plant, maybe some sort of a semi-aquatic plant that could fulfill some of the same processes, or even terrestrial, where the roots can be dry most of the time but work their way down and really get the most of the nitrates from the sort of water table below. So yeah, just something to think about, guys. I'll give you guys some examples and show you some ones that I like the look of, just from a surface level, and hopefully that inspires you to maybe try something different. And if you do, I would love to see what you produce. You know, I'd be happy to share it on the vlog for other viewers to see. And you know, let's inspire each other, let's motivate each other to do different things, let's communicate and try to get as much information from each other and to each other so we can do more and more amazing things. And most of all, keeping the species at the forefront, you know, always thinking from the perspective of, I'm trying to create the best possible housing, home, habitat, or collectively biotope for the species that I'm keeping. We want to really think from that ethical perspective, and you know, we want to be kind to the species that we keep. One of the biggest things I try to champion as much as possible is for us as fish keepers to treat our fishes like, you know, we keep our dogs or our cats or birds. Let's treat them with the respect that they deserve and give them the best possible housing that we can. Alright, just my thoughts for today. I'd like to thank you all once again for joining. Don't forget to tune in for the next episode where I'll try to do something a bit more comprehensive. And of course, please do not forget to click the subscribe button and of course the little bell so you get a nice notification every time I put a video up. Alright, have a great evening. Speak to you all soon.